Imagine you are in a federal industry, and with the stroke of a pen, the feds have decided to outlaw what you do for a living and the money that you generate into the Canadian economy. Well, I think that's what it feels like to be an oil patch CEO right now and to be someone who works in the oil patch. And yet, when Environment Minister at the time, Stephen Guilbeault, was pushing his net zero green transition plan, 2 weeks ago, he refused to meet with oil patch CEOs to explain himself and what he wants to do to the entire energy sector. It's crazy. I think it's a slap in the face. And joining me now is somebody who's been a staunch advocate for people who work within the oil and gas sector and for Canada's oil and gas on the international market. My friend Robbie Picard, founder of Oil Sands Strong. He joins me now from Fort McMurray. Robbie, thanks for coming on the show. What do you think about this? Stephen Guilbeault refusing to meet with the oil patch CEOs. Now, Guilbeault said that he would rather meet with people that he doesn't normally get to meet with, I guess, like environmentalist organizations. But what do you think about this refusal to explain himself to the people whose industries he plans to destroy?
I think it shows you where his mind at from his past history, from his past activism. Like, he's the guy that, put solar panels on Ralph Klein's home or attempted to. I think it's very scary, but I'm not surprised. It's a sign of the times. I mean, they don't want our industry to be successful. They want to shut it down. There's a rush to shut it down. And it's terrifying. And I truly hope that we have a proper change of government right now, because the damage that Trudeau is doing to us, I I don't think people understand how severe it is. I mean, candidly, I'm trying to be very hopeful about Fort McMurray, but it's almost like they've put a kind of like a countdown clock on our entire economy and our entire future. And it's very scary. And I'm worried. I'm worried about our future. I think that he should be ashamed of himself that he wouldn't meet with any of. I mean, when you're the environmental minister, you're supposed to meet with everybody, and it's about making the environment better. I do not believe shutting down oil and gas is going to make the world a better place. It's going to make other countries richer and Canada poorer.
What's it like in Fort McMurray? What's the sense in Fort McMurray? Because, I think it's a surprise to nobody. My husband works in oil and gas, and we're in a bit of a boom right now. I think owing some of it to, frankly, the war in Ukraine that sort of always drives up the price of commodities like oil and gas. But things finally, after a very long time, are picking back up in the oil patch. We're seeing mass hirings instead of mass layoffs. Things have been hopeful, especially with Premier Daniel Smith's advocacy for Canadian oil and gas. And then all of a sudden, we have the feds just throwing this wet blanket over top of the industry. What's it like in Fort McMurray?
I, Honestly, like right now, I'm not hearing about a lot of job hires. I mean, I know that if you're in heavy equipment or an operator, they're pretty short in that department. But candidly, I mean, you're hearing about a lot of layoffs. Especially at Suncor right now. So, but I mean, I don't know. That could just be with some decisions they've made internally to do some, shifting that now they've kind of really taken over Syncrude. But the morale in our community sucks. Like, it feels really kind of bad, and there's a lot of empty buildings. There's not a lot of investment. I mean, we might be getting a super Walmart, but uh, I think our community um, has been hit with two things. There's a lot of fly in, fly out. People live in camps. We've got like 30,000 people live in camps. And we are, for whatever reason, the pariah of all things bad in the world. So I do believe it's booming a little bit, but the feeling isn't overly optimistic right now. I mean, there's lots of houses on the market. The prices are dropping. I think this interest rate hike has really hurt a lot of people. Um, I think that like the decisions that Trudeau has made and the comments he's made, it's just really bad. But I mean, I want to be hopeful, Sheila, but it's not always easy to be hopeful. Like, for what Fort McMurray has contributed to the rest of the country, Alberta, and everywhere else, we should have a lot more than we do right now. and that part is a little bit kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about what these net zero policies, and they say they want everything to be net zero by 2050. That's really only, 25, 26, 27 years out. When you think about the time it takes to build a major oil and gas facility, it can take upwards of a decade. And that's multi-billion dollars of investment. And that's just not going to happen here in Canada with the sun setting on the industry if the Liberals have their way. That money is not going to come to Fort McMurray, is not going to come to Fort Saskatchewan's Upgrader Alley. It's going to go to places like North Dakota, West Texas, Kazakhstan, Nigeria, places where it's safer to invest in the oil industry than in Justin Trudeau's Canada.
Well, and I think that's what he wanted, and I think history, like people judge people by history. You can always make statements on that. I don't think history is going to look very kindly on his effect on Canada. And I think like the damage that he's done to our industry, I think will be paying for a very long time. For example, like if he would have decided to do something for LNG and liquefied natural gas and became a friend to Germany, a friend to Japan, that could have set our next generation up for success. But instead, he said there was no business case for it. Yeah, I think that is the intention of the bigger plan. It's just to you know just get the oil and gas industry to die a slow death. I'm not really much of a conspiracy theorist, but I do question so much of what's going on right now and why it's going on, and I'm very worried. When it comes to Fort McMurray, like, we should be the richest city in Canada. We should be booming. We should have all this amazing stuff. And there's not a lot of new investment here right now. And I don't believe it is lack of opportunity. I think it's just the way the government has basically done the narration of our community that communities that rely on oil and gas are just going to be shut down. And I'm worried because our morale and our future. The house prices are dropping, interest rates I mean, so many people are upside down on their mortgages. There's only so much people can take, and then they break, and that's sort of the feel right now. I wish it was optimistic. I mean, I do believe other parts of Alberta are booming more than us, but it just goes to show you how the heart of the Canada's energy industry isn't always the most loved.